Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome to another Lemon Amiga Play Guide and Review. In this week's episode, we'll be taking a look at Roadkill, developed by Vision Software and published by Acid Software for the CD32 in 1994. Roadkill opens with a very atmospheric introduction animation which is being rendered onto our CD32, and I have actually centered the screen on this rip because that's usually off to one side. And this introduction animation is rather unique because it shows someone being killed live on camera, and that is rather unfair and that is not really good sportsmanship, but that's why I'm actually cutting that out of this introduction video. Showtime! Contains some terrific music and some terrific action as well, and this opens the door to the game itself, where we get to drive one of these vehicles and use an array of firepower to blow them up. Roadkill is a high-speed action game which is very action-packed indeed, and it's very easy to lose the car if you are not careful and end up with a scene just like this. The game itself begins with a title sequence, and you can see the Vision logo in 3D rotating around. It's very nice, and you can see the programmers and the coders of this game, and we'll be mentioning those a little bit later on. And you can see that this is an actual AGA game, so it's supposed to use 256 colours on the screen at any time, and actually ray tracing in its infancy is being used here on the Amiga to try to create 3D items in this game. But the 3D is limited to the title sequence, and by pressing the fire button we can change the various options. Let's just leave the difficulty on medium for this out of the settings, easy, medium and hard, and we can also practice those laps and set the number of laps per game, and so let's just leave that on 3 and leave the control method on automatic. We can even practice the level before we even start that, so let's leave the practice mode off. And by pressing that fire button, we can now move on to the car selection screen from the 6 cars available in this game. Each one of these will have slightly different maneuverability and slightly different handling, but each one of these has the same number of base shields, so hopefully it will be just as easy to get through with one or the other. Let's just select the vehicle known as Hammer, and let's hope that that gives us a good try with this game. Hammer. As each level loads, we will be given this introduction screen where we can see the items available to pick up on every level, and then we are thrust into the game world itself to career around in circles.
Good luck. You'll need it. Showtime. Rockets. Take his life.
As you can see, Roadkill is a top-down driving game, a little bit like Supercars 2, and this time it's a much larger map, and we even gained a map in the bottom corner as well. Not that we can tell which one of those dots that we are on the map at any given time. By holding down the fire button we can accelerate, and by pressing the second button on our controller, if we have a 2-button controller, that will launch a missile. And it's important to launch those missiles against those enemy players. And you will find each race contains 9 opponents which we have to get beyond, and I think that we have to get into the first 3 positions in order to qualify for the next race. We can destroy cars by ramming them into the sides, ramming them into the spikes that you can see, or we can blow those away with a missile, or we can simply try to drive well and try to avoid those at all costs.
You lost.
If we don't qualify at the end of those laps which the player has set, in this case it's 3 laps, then the player can try again with one of 3 retries in this game.
Armor. Take his life.
Our armour is represented by the damage counter, which is listed in the bottom left corner, and you can see 4 bars, well actually 2 bars now of damage which remain, and you can collect extra bars as you drive around the track. Each one of the collectibles has a number of chevrons in front of that, so hopefully you can follow the chevrons and collect the armour and the missiles as we drive around.
Rockets.
The aim of the game is also to collect cash, and if we blow away those cars they will award us some cash, and awarding millions of points if you manage to destroy a number of cars, and you can even go for a super bonus if you destroy maybe 4 or 5 cars in a row. We managed to finish second in the very first easy race, which isn't amazing to be honest. And so after that we are given the bonuses and the money that we've earned during that race, and unfortunately we cannot spend that money in any kind of a shop. That is basically your score, which we will take to the end of the game. If an enemy vehicle is somewhere around our vicinity, sometimes we'll gain the message destroy him or take his life, and that means that we must fire a rocket into the side of that enemy, and that will award us a huge bonus. And if we do that another 2 times, then that will award us the super bonus as it appears on the screen, and that can be 5 million, 10 million, and maybe even more than that later on. Despite using the 4-button CD32 controller, I don't think that there are any brakes in this game, and so you'll have to just let go of the fire button to slow down, and that means you'll have to anticipate these corners, because of course if we collide with the sides of that track, that could rebound us and pinball us around in a circle forever, as we will see just a little bit later on.
Rockets.
At this stage we will find two forms of instant firepower, the missiles and the rockets, and I think the rockets simply fire forwards and you can only destroy things in a direct line, although it is possible to manoeuvre those slightly left and right if we are angling our car left and right at that time. But we will also find missiles, particularly on the next level, and those missiles are actually homing missiles, and that means that they will lock onto a target in our vicinity and fly around sometimes in a circle around our car until it finds a target, and so the missiles are definitely handy to pick up. You can see that's the M symbol, and all we have to do is just drive over those to collect it. Even from the CD32, these levels do take quite some time to load, so you will have to put up with a number of black screens whilst you're waiting for that to happen.
Jackpot.
If you manage to trigger the jackpot, then you must score a hit within that time, otherwise the jackpot will fail and you'll have to score those deaths all over again to hit the jackpot. So unfortunately my missiles rebounded away from the enemies and I didn't have enough missiles left to repel my attackers. Sometimes when we collect a power-up that will appear in our inventory box, and you can see an S for an extra speed up, which will give us better acceleration, but sometimes those are simply temporary and they wear off after a while, so if we crash right at the moment, then that thing is actually worn off. And sometimes it's important just to try to keep going in a straight line and hope that we have enough armour to make it to the end, and even divert our way towards extra armour just so that we can make it.
Last chance. You lost.
See signs for the pit stop, and yes, we can pull into the pits if we are majorly damaged, but unfortunately that does take its time and you are still better off going for the armour than pulling into the pits and wasting all that time trying to get a repair. So it's better to drive safely rather than try to make it into the pits. Some of these levels don't even take care to make sure that we drive around the whole track, and we can take shortcuts as long as we make it over that line, and the game will still count that as a lap. So you can see, well, I actually cut out a major part of this track simply by doing that, and any track which contains a loop can be cut in the same way.
Jackpot.
This is virtually another brand new game for me, but this did come up in the Lemon Amiga competition a number of years ago, and this is the first time I've seen it, and this was actually recorded after the Lemon competition and is not my highest score, unfortunately. But it's very easy to forget these levels, and to some extent it's good to memorise these, and then you can find your way around the track without having to look at that map. Having qualified, it's great to see our score piling up, and every time we destroy a car we will gain RK. No idea what that means, but that means that we've destroyed a car, and yes, piling up cash in this game never gets boring, and so it even gives us a password to continue from this very spot should we want to continue, and that's a great option in this game. Unfortunately, there is no two-player mode, so there is no two-player action. And that's slightly an oversight, and that was slightly better done in Supercars 2. There are 4 sets of tracks available, the easy, medium, hard and extra hard, and these are the medium tracks that we are moving into at the moment. You can see there are special traction spots which don't really help us, and there are also mines as well scattered along the road, and so as we progress through the game we will find it's harder and harder, and we'll have to jump over ramps to get over mines and make sure that we collect all that armour. And so you can see bumping out of the way and bumping guys out of the way is critical, and collecting those missiles straight away is also paramount, and then we can start to fight back. It's even possible to slow down with enough missiles and simply blow everybody away as they try to overtake us, and that means that we can keep on being in that first position, and as long as we are in first, that's all we need to do. So you may see me slowing down at certain points of this game, simply taking shortcuts just like this, but also slowing down to try to knock out those people who are trying to overtake us. As far as I know, Roadkill is an Amiga exclusive game, released for the first time on the CD32 in 1994, and an AGA version appeared in 1995. It was coded by Paul Andrews, whose first game was Gnome, which appeared on the Linnell label in 1991. Paul Andrews also created Cybernetics, which appeared on the Amiga format cover disc, along with Microbes in 1992, Cybernetics being a very amazing drop zone kind of Defender clone, and he moved on to Woody's World in 1993. Seek and Destroy appeared in 1994 for the AGA machines and the CD32, along with Roadkill. Paul Andrews is also famous for coding the Zombie Apocalypse games, Zombie Apocalypse 1 and 2. These great graphics were created by Rodney Smith, and he began with Cygnus 7 on the Amiga in 1990. He helped Paul Andrews with Kiro's Quest in 1992, again on the Linnell label, and then moved on to the zombie games, and also worked on the Skidmark games for Acid Software. The 3D intro was created by Grant Wallace, and this was his only game. And the music jingles which appear were created by Blair Zupikic, and he began again with Cygnus 7, Cybernetics, Seek and Destroy, of which some sound effects are copied, and also moved on to Woody's World and Zombie Apocalypse 2. After Zombie Apocalypse 2, the team moved on to 2 more games. Zombie Bunny appeared in 1996 for the DOS platform, and 7th Legion appeared for Windows in 1997. The Vision software team were based in New Zealand, and this was founded in 1989 as Art Computersoft by 4 people, including Paul Andrews, Rodney Smith and Mark Sibley. Mark Sibley, of course, went on to found Acid Software a short time later, and Vision Software and Acid Software really did have a close relationship, and often people would work for one and the other, and so Vision and Acid were the popular New Zealand software creators for the Amiga. In this game, it's essential to conserve those shields, and we have one shield remaining, and every time we collide heavily with the side of the track, sometimes we damage our shields, and sometimes it's best to let go of the fire button slightly, and then we don't take so much damage. The mines, on the other hand, are absolutely lethal, and trying to cut through that very small gap isn't really possible unless you can shove somebody into those mines and they will blow up, and completing this game is knowing the tracks and knowing when to take those shortcuts as well. Added to this, the player must also have a certain amount of luck, and banging into other cars is somewhat random sometimes, and you can see sneaking through is possible, but luck has to be on your side, because if you collide with two cars together, they will simply write off your vehicle, and then that's game over. Maybe up to track 5 of the 12 in this game, and after our defeat we get to enter our name on the highest score table, and that is not my highest score by a long way, but we get to enter that name, and you can see a few entries there already, with virtually 500,000 being the best I've ever scored in this game. But players can score an immense amount if they play all the way to the end, and this is certainly a challenging game, and much more challenging than Supercars 2. Over to the long play, of course provided by Hypernius on YouTube, whilst we look at the scores. Dator magazine gave this the lowest score at basically 2 out of 5, which is 40%. Amiga Games magazine gave Roadkill 70%, Amiga Concept gave it 75%, Amiga Format gave it 75%, Amiga Joker gave this game 82%, Amiga Power gave it 84%, Amiga gave this game 85%, and the Lemon Amiga crew currently awarded this 85% on the Lemon Amiga database.
Missiles.
In the highest scores we find Amiga Dream gave this 86%, Amiga Computing gave it 87%, The One gave Roadkill 90%, and CD32 Gamer gave this understandably a 93% rating, which gives this an average score of 8 out of 10.
Super Jackpot.
The fact that the car can bounce around uncontrollably is one of the negative aspects of this game, and if you bounce around uncontrollably too many times, then that's race over, then you don't really have too many lives to play around with either. So the player will have to memorise these tracks, and you can see the later tracks weave all over the place, and so sometimes it's skill over judgment, but sometimes you really have to master these tracks, and it's a little bit harder to master these than ATR, simply because these tracks weave around all over, and ATR was rather straightforward. You can see the tracks are very difficult at the later stages, and it will take some time to master this game. Roadkill is a very tough challenge and the player will be sweating trying to play this game, and the end sequence is very welcome indeed.
Well done. You have entered the realm of the Roadkill Immortals. This is Lucifer Star saying good night.
Thank you for viewing another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. I hope this has helped you play this game. This is only a guide, but yet again I hope that this has introduced this game to a few more players, and thank you for watching another review.